What if I told you that man hailed as a filthy lunatic actually held the key to escaping your misery with women? This is not about red pills, dating hacks, or building status. This is about brutal truth. Truth that rips the mask off your obsession. Diogenes of Sinope didn't chase women. He barked at men who did. And what he said still burns 2,000 years later. There was a time men ruled cities with swords, not swipes. But even then, they bent at the sight of a pretty face. They begged, they bled, they battled for attention. And in the corner, Diogenes watched it all. Not with envy, not with lust, but with disgust. Diogenes didn't live like other men. He didn't eat at tables, he didn't sleep in beds. He had no wife, no mansion, no money, no shoes, but he had clarity. And that clarity cut deeper than any philosopher who came before or after him. He said something no man today dares to say aloud. Chasing women makes you weak. Diogenes would have laughed in his face, not out of cruelty, but out of recognition, because he saw the same pathetic pursuit repeat in every city, in every age. And every time, he growled the same warning. Slaves don't wear chains, they wear perfume and desperation. He called men who chased women donkeys following a drum. He said, they hear the sound of a thing and move without thinking. That's how he saw it, not as romance, not as passion, but as instinct, poorly managed. Lust wearing a tuxedo, madness in a mask. Diogenes didn't just talk, he acted. When men bowed to beauty, he mocked them. When they preached about love, he defiled their ideas. He once stood in public, performing a crude act, shouting, if only hunger could be satisfied as is. He didn't hate women. He hated weakness. He hated need. He hated the way men sold their strength for kisses and favors. He hated that society crowned the obedient and exiled the free. He didn't care about your heart. He cared about your mind. He asked, why do you crave something that controls you? Nothing's changed. Today, men don't walk behind women on marble streets. They beg through glowing screens. They lose sleep. They waste money. They build their lives around the fantasy of being chosen. Diogenes wouldn't weep. He'd laugh, and then he'd spit. He once said, he has the most who is most content with the least. The man who needs nothing owns everything. But the man who needs attention, who needs sex, who needs approval from a stranger, he owns nothing, not even himself. This is why Diogenes lived in filth. It wasn't laziness. It was defiance. He stripped himself of every comfort to expose the madness of the world around him. You think chasing women gives you purpose. He thought it proved your emptiness. He believed virtue meant independence, freedom from desire, freedom from control. And what controls the modern man more than the chase? Diogenes saw this pattern thousands of years ago. Rejection didn't exist for him. He didn't ask. He didn't need. He didn't seek. He lived on his own terms. And when Alexander the Great offered him anything he wanted, Diogenes replied, stand out of my sunlight. That was a man who chased no one. That was power. Not bench press numbers, not Instagram followers, not game. Control over desire is power, and Diogenes, he mastered it. Men today confuse lust for love. They confuse conquest for connection. And in the process they become the very clowns Diogenes warned us about: hollow, hungry, hunted. You think chasing women proves you're alive. Diogenes thought it proved you were asleep. You build your body, you learn clever lines, you practice status games, you craft the image for what? So you can bend yourself for women who don't respect you. You train not for war, but for seduction. Diogenes saw this circus and called it exactly what it was: bondage. He didn't believe men needed to chase. He believed they needed to wake up. When men chased women, Diogenes didn't blame the women. He blamed the man's weakness, the thirst, the need. He believed desire, ungoverned, turns men into dogs, chasing carts, loud, restless, always panting, never thinking. It's the same game. Diogenes lived in a world of temples, whores, and courtesans. We live in a world of filters, thirst traps, and DMS. But the game hasn't changed. Only the tools have. And Diogenes already destroyed that game long ago. He believed you escape this prison not by winning it, but by burning it. He said, I throw away my cup when I saw a boy drinking from his hands. He stripped himself of every item that made him reliant. The same should be done with neediness. If a boy can drink from his hands, you can learn to live without being seen, praised, or wanted. He didn't hate pleasure. He hated addiction. And men addicted to women's attention live like lepers with cologne. The man who waits for a text is no different than a beggar in chains. Diogenes saw this clearly. That's why he didn't beg for love. He begged for truth. He didn't seek kisses. He sought freedom. He said the highest virtue was autarkia, self-sufficiency. That's the one trait missing in most modern men. Because deep down they crave to be chosen, not by God, not by mission, but by her. And they'll twist themselves to fit what she wants. He called men like this slaves in disguise. When a man's mission is to be liked, he's already conquered. When a man adjusts his beliefs, tone, or strength just to be more palatable to a woman, he loses everything. Diogenes didn't adjust. He barked, literally. One day the people called him a dog, so he embraced it. He said, yes, I bark at those who give me nothing. I fawn on those who give me something, and I bite those who give me nothing and insult me on top of it. He flipped the insult. He said, "You think I'm a dog because I don't kneel? Good, I'd rather bark than beg." He didn't care for theories. He cared for action. When Plato philosophized about man, Diogenes laughed and said, "I'll show you a man." He stripped the layers of abstraction and forced people to confront reality. So what's the reality? The man who chases becomes the clown. The man who waits becomes the ghost. The man who builds without need becomes the storm. Diogenes didn't say, "Don't love." He said, "Don't bow. You can care, you can feel. But the second your identity hinges on being wanted, you've lost." He once walked through the market with a lantern in broad daylight. When people asked why, he said, "I am looking for an honest man." He never found one, not because they didn't exist, but because most men were pretending. Pretending to be confident, pretending to be wanted, pretending to have purpose, but their lives revolved around one thing: female validation. Diogenes didn't pretend. He didn't build a mask. He built a wall between himself and the world's illusions, and chasing women. He saw it as the biggest illusion of all. You're told to chase in a smarter way, be high value, increase attraction, use game theory. But Diogenes would say, why chase at all? You don't win by upgrading the strategy. You win by burning the board. Let them play. You walk away. And when you do, you gain what they'll never have: sovereignty. Diogenes believed that to be free, you had to strip away every false desire, and nothing enslaved more than the need to be wanted. He believed real masculinity isn't earned through attention. It's forged in solitude, in hunger, in hardship, in discipline. A man who walks alone and stays whole is greater than the man with 10 women and a hollow chest. You will be tested. You will feel alone. You will crave softness. But Diogenes would remind you, freedom is not for the weak. It is for the wild, the unchained, the few. So ask yourself, are you chasing because you want to love? Or are you chasing because you fear being alone? That difference separates the weak from the strong. And Diogenes, he would rather live in a barrel with truth than in a palace built on illusion. Freedom sounds beautiful until you realize what it demands. It doesn't hand you pleasure. It strips you of illusion. And Diogenes didn't offer comfort. He offered confrontation. Plato said men lived in shadows. Diogenes broke the walls. He didn't just free minds. He forced them naked into the sun. That's the part no one talks about. Freedom is not gentle. It humiliates you. It exposes you. It leaves you with nothing but the truth. And for men who chase women, the truth is ugly. You don't want her. You want what she symbolizes. Validation, safety, ego, lust, dressed up as longing. And worse, you believe her attention fixes you. Diogenes never believed in fixes. He believed in removal. You don't fix a slave's chains. You break them. You don't upgrade your thirst. You kill it. He thinks he's in control. He thinks he's choosing. But the algorithm owns his mind. Her attention decides his self-worth. He's not a man. He's a product waiting for a buyer. Diogenes walked barefoot into the streets and snarled at men like that. Not because they were pathetic, but because they were blind. Blind to their own leash. He said, why not whip the teacher when the pupil misbehaves? That's how backwards he saw society. The people teaching men to grovel, submit, and perform were celebrated. But the men who rejected the dance, called dogs. The name Diogenes comes from Diogenes, born of Zeus. He called himself a dog, but he walked like a god. Because he didn't bow, he didn't beg, he didn't play games. He hunted truth, not approval. He didn't see women as evil. He saw dependence as hell. And most men are trapped there, not by women, but by their own hunger for them. Freedom doesn't mean avoiding women. It means no longer needing them to feel whole. Big difference, but here's the twist. Diogenes wouldn't align with any of them. Not the SIMPs, not the Stoics, not the red pill priests. Why? Because all of them still orbit women. Whether they worship or resent them, they're still obsessed. Diogenes didn't orbit anything. He stood alone, laughing, free. He believed philosophy wasn't meant to decorate life. It was meant to destroy illusion. You don't study truth to win arguments. You study it to kill weakness. And chasing women, for him, was the most visible form of male weakness, not because women are dangerous, but because desire devours self-possession. He gave her everything: his time, his money, his love, his dignity, and when she left, he collapsed. Why? Because he never stood on his own legs. Diogenes would have told him, you gave away your power the moment you needed hers. True freedom is terrifying. It demands solitude. It demands detachment. It demands the courage to be hated, mocked, misunderstood. He once said, blushing is the color of virtue, but he never blushed, because shame didn't stick to him. When people called him disgusting, he smiled, because they revealed their fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of what they'd be without love, sex, praise, and that fear. That's what fuels the chase. Diogenes didn't rehearse. He barked. He lived in truth. And the truth was this: men who chase women don't chase love. They chase escape. From silence, from insecurity, from the work of becoming complete. They treat women like medicine. But Diogenes had no illnesses left. He had killed them all. So, who was the real alpha? The man chasing women, or the one all kings feared to debate? Even Alexander the Great stood in front of Diogenes and flinched, because Diogenes wasn't a man, he was a mirror. He reflected back your dependence, your excuses, your distractions, and most men hated what they saw because once you see it, you can't unsee it. No man deserves a woman until he masters being alone. Not tolerates it, not endures it, masters it. Modern men fear silence. They treat it like a curse. But Diogenes treated silence like a sword. He sharpened it daily. That silence carved through lies. It exposed who you are without distraction. If you can't sit alone without needing sex, praise, or texts from her, then you are not a man. You're a beggar with good cologne. Men chase women not out of love, but out of escape. Escape from self-confrontation, from truth, from the hard work of building a spine. Diogenes knew this. He called out men who refused solitude. He lived in a barrel, not because he had no options, but because he rejected comfort. Comfort makes men soft. Solitude makes them sharp. He was alone, but never lonely, because he had himself. Most men can't say that. Most men lose their minds without a woman to orbit. Diogenes stood still while others spun. He didn't run from emptiness. He stared into it until it cracked. Modern men fill their days with noise, TikTok, Tinder, porn, podcasts. But Diogenes filled his day with nothing, and in that nothing he found power. Because when there's nothing left to distract you, you meet the real you. And most men hate that meeting. He doesn't know who he is without her. That's not love. That's sickness. That's dependency. That's slavery. You think you're chasing romance, but you're chasing anesthesia. You want her to numb your soul so you don't have to face the mirror. Diogenes didn't need anesthesia. He wanted pain. Because pain tells the truth. He said, I threw away my cup when I saw a child drinking from his hands. That's the level of self-reliance he demanded. Brutal, humbling, pure. If a child can drink from his hands, why does a man need tools? If a philosopher can live in a barrel, why does a man need flattery? And if a soul is strong, why does it need validation? Every man must earn his right to love. He earns it in the wilderness, in the fire of silence, in the death of the ego. You must become whole before you share yourself. You don't find your power in women. You don't find it in money. You don't even find it in strength. You find it in solitude. You find it when you have nothing to prove. You find it when you no longer chase anyone. You find it when being ignored doesn't shake you. That's when a woman becomes a choice, not a mission. That's when you stop loving with fear. That's when your presence stops being needy and starts being dangerous. Diogenes was dangerous, not because he had power, but because he couldn't be tempted. That's what makes men powerful. That's what terrifies women. That's what confuses society. A man who doesn't need them. Needless men are not cold, they're clear. Their love is a gift, not a bribe. Their attention is rare, not desperate. Their silence holds more weight than your loudest compliment. Diogenes mastered solitude so completely. Kings feared him, women whispered about him, philosophers avoided him. Why? Because his presence shattered illusion. He forced people to confront their noise. Remove the noise, and most men collapse. Remove the praise, and they shrink. Remove her, and they panic. But remove everything from Diogenes, and he laughed. That's the model. Not the pickup artist, not the simp, not the motivational guru. The man who laughs when all is stripped away. That's the one who has conquered the soul. This is the path, not easy, not sexy, but necessary. You must go into the quiet. You must bury your need for approval. You must sit with your own stink, until you no longer run from it. That's when you'll stop chasing women, not because you hate them, but because you finally see them clearly. And more importantly, you finally see yourself. You see your value, your presence, your mission, and you guard it like fire. Diogenes didn't hate love. He hated dependence. He didn't hate women. He hated weakness. He didn't preach bitterness. He preached brutal wholeness. Be alone, be still, be real. Then and only then will love not break you. You've come this far. You've seen the madness. You've felt the sting. You've looked Diogenes in the eye. And deep down you know he was right. But knowing the truth means nothing if you do not act on it. And here's the final truth he left us with. The real enemy is not out there. It lives inside you. It's the voice that says, just one more message. It's the whisper that says, she might like you back. It's the lie that says, you're worthless without her. That voice must die. Diogenes did not seek comfort. He sought clarity. You're not in a dating game. You're in a war. And the battlefield is your mind. The war is against craving, against flattery, against dependency. The enemy wears no uniform. It hides inside your habits. It hides in the way you scroll, in the way you scroll, in the way you wait, in the way you hope. You do not need to crush women. You need to crush illusion. Diogenes built his inner citadel. You must build yours. Not with bricks, with discipline. Every time you say no to impulse, you add a stone. Every time you walk away from need, you strengthen the walls. Every time you speak the truth and stand alone, the tower grows. Most men die in chains they forge themselves. Chains made of approval, lust, and false hope. Diogenes shattered his chains. That's why his name echoes, not because he was clever, because he was free. Freedom is not found in the arms of another. It is found in the fire that burns every lie about yourself. You are not half of a soul waiting to be completed. You are not a victim of rejection. You are not a child begging for validation. You are a storm that forgot its strength. Every man must reach the moment where he stops looking outward and turns inward. That is the doorway to the inner citadel. Diogenes walked through it. Marcus Aurelius stood behind it. Every great man who ever lived passed that threshold, alone. And what do you find once you enter? Peace, not pleasure. Power, not control over others, but over yourself. Purpose, not to chase, but to stand. There is a cost, yes, you will be misunderstood, mocked, called bitter, called mad. Diogenes was all those things, and yet, he was the only one who could not be broken. The moment you stop chasing, you begin leading. And women, they are drawn to strength, not need, to stillness, not noise, to presence, not performance. But even then, you do not return to the chase. You walk your path. You do not stray, because the mission is not to impress. It is to become. If Diogenes were alive today, he would not change. He'd still bark, still offend, still expose. But his message would be the same. Burn the desire that owns you and rise. You are not here to chase, you are here to conquer yourself. This is the inner citadel, and you just found the key. Subscribe now and join the brotherhood.